Bill Michener, Executive Director of Lighthouse. And I remember back my first encounter of Lighthouse, it was back in June of 1990. I had dropped out of high school and I'm out running the streets with my friends and heard Lighthouse was a place to go to hang out. So I walked in there and that's when I originally saw this guy in this suit and thought, I'm not quite sure this is the place for me. Gave it a chance and started playing like pool and spades and that kind of stuff and just hanging out with my friends. And that guy was Pete Allman, the founder of Lighthouse. So then I start going back to school, and one of the initial hurdles I had was I had to go in front of the board to ask them to go back into school, which I found very interesting because they told me, we will reluctantly let you back because we don't think you're going to graduate. And at the time, leaving there, I thought, gosh, this could be a killer, right? Another adult that doesn't believe in me. And so I was lucky enough to have Lighthouse behind me to believe in me, to push me to then go back to school. And a lot of times that's going to be one of two things. You're either going to use that for fuel for the fire, or it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And luckily enough, I had those people behind me that it became fuel for the fire. I wanted to show them that I'm not a statistic, that I'm not going to fall into what they've seen time and time again. So I really started buckling down and separating myself from those influences that were negative in my life to really get this done in a big manner. And I think back of the adults in the school system that made a difference to me. And there were really two people. One was the principal, Sam Nelson, and one of our original board members at Lighthouse. The other was what was called the Bulldog, or what he is known as a rhino, that he was the disciplinarian, the associate principal, Barry Stark. And him and I became very close even in high school. And that relationship carried on into adulthood. And so his influence over that educational piece to me is what helped drive me to continue on to go get my bachelor's and master's degree. So education became kind of the center point of who I am after those relationships were born, which really didn't mean much to me before. I mean, you go from a dropout in high school to having a master's degree in counseling. That's pretty special. I've been so fortunate to be a part of Lighthouse for the last 24 years, starting out as a part-time staff member, transitioning into volunteer coordinator, facility manager, and then of course serving the last 14 years as executive director. I was fortunate enough to be a part of a training that LPS put on called Restorative Practices. And I went to this training and found out that it was something we already do at Lighthouse. It was just implicit. And through this training, I found out once you make something explicit, you really start changing the world. And restorative practices became such a passion of mine that I wanted to study it more, figure it out more, see how we can change our culture at Lighthouse at a really deep level, because that restorative piece really has to do with fair process and giving every student and every person a voice. And we want our young people to have a voice, so then they feel like they're part of something special. It really has to do with the family environment. Any person that comes in here, and I've heard this hundreds of times from volunteers, they come in my doors, they get engaged, they think that they're gonna do one thing, and they get sucked into the relationships, to the stories of the young people that they don't wanna leave. It's such a special place that I promise that if you get engaged with Lighthouse, you'll see the power, the love that is created there that is truly changing these young people's lives. Whether you can give money, your time, whatever you can do, you will be changed just as much as my young people are.